All right, so welcome everybody. Just think it's time that we got started here. My name is Craig Pollock and welcome to our webinar, Microsoft Teams Training and Intro to Teams. I hope you're all ready to learn the basics of how to work within Teams. I know that we had some really good attendance into our last webinar, which was an overview and gave an overview of just what Teams does, how it can add to your workflow, how it can add to collaboration, how it can improve how you and your team work together, especially in this new work from home paradigm. But before we begin, just want to go over some basic housekeeping. We're sensitive to your time and are aiming to bring this in around 45 to 50 minutes. So depending on the Q&A, we'll definitely bring it in by noon. While your individual phone lines are muted, if you have any questions along the way, simply click on the raise hand icon or ask a question in the question box, and we'll be monitoring that and look forward to having this be a little bit of an interactive training session. But simply, ask your question and we'll do our best to answer it either during the actual presentation or afterwards during the Q&A section. So let's introduce you to today's speakers and give you a little bit of background about us. So that being said, my name is Craig Pollock and I'm the founder and CEO of FPA Technology Services. And I've been working with small to mid-sized businesses, helping them leverage and secure their technology for over 30 years. And while we've grown FPA into one of the most respected IT service providers in Los Angeles, my primary role these days is to move our company forward while providing the vision and direction for running and securing our clients' technology. My experience over the years is one of the reasons FPA specializes in working with investment advisors, CPAs, attorneys, insurance brokers, manufacturers and distributors, and some nonprofits. We work with a lot of different industries, a lot of different verticals. We primarily focus on professional service firms. I'm personally active in the industry. I've spoken at a number of industry events. I've written a number of articles, had a number of articles published, been on a number of podcasts, and actually have a chapter in a book on cybersecurity coming out in August, September timeframe. So that's pretty exciting. That said, I'd like to introduce you to Bob Niekamp. Bob's official title here is Business Development Support Manager, but he does so much more. His primary focus these days is around Microsoft Teams, Office 365, cybersecurity, as well as managing our vendor relations, staff certification, and training programs, as well as procurement. At the same time, Bob also acts as a virtual CIO for a number of clients as well. So as you can see, Bob's pretty busy with a lot of different hats that he wears. But he's a great resource for 365 licensing and actually the use of Teams and other related sort of products. So Bob will be running the primary training session today, and I'll be handing it off to him in a second. Until we get there, just real quick, some background about FPA and why we're qualified to put on this presentation. But we've been in business for over 29 years, have approximately 22, 23 employees. All of them are full-time employees. We don't use contractors. Everybody that you talk to or work with at FPA is a full-time employee, and we're proud of our team. We're proud of our culture. We really believe in what we do. We believe in the service that we're aiming to deliver to our clients and really believe in the client relationships that we build with our clients over time. One of our mantras is business before technology. To us, this means we focus on the business aspects and the value proposition technology brings to our client businesses, more than just, the technology for the sake of the technology or the bells and whistles. It's really about how can technology help your business grow? How can you retain your staff? How can you improve productivity? All of those sorts of things. So it's really about the end result, not technology for technology's sake. At the same time, like I said, we have a really strong culture in our business, in our team. We believe in our core values, and core value number one is simple: take care of the client. We believe that if we're doing this, everything else will fall into place. And it's in this spirit that we're putting putting on today's webinar. With this new work from home paradigm, we're seeing more and more clients needing to improve their communications and collaboration. And this is really where Microsoft Teams shines. We leverage it every day, constantly. It's really helped our team to actually get closer during this work from home paradigm. So it's an awesome tool. Hopefully today we'll peel it back a little bit, help you guys learn a little bit more about actually nuts and bolts, how to do this, how to do that, how to do this a little bit better, and how to do that a little bit better. So again, before we jump in and I turn over the reins to Bob, here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. We're going to be talking about the basics of how to navigate and use Microsoft Teams. So what is Teams? What does it do? How do you use it? What are the key settings in Teams? How do you set yourself up for success? Simply how to chat and make video calls. What does that look like? What are the steps? It's very easy, but there's a lot of shortcuts and a lot of ways to make this program help you be more productive. How to optimize your background for Teams. That's a really important, seems like a simple thing, but it's actually really important to improve the whole experience. And especially we're doing so much virtually these days that you don't want to have too much busyness in your background. You want to have a background that really shows off and helps people focus on you, the speaker. We're going to talk about how Teams integrates with Outlook, OneNote, and OneDrive, and mechanically how that's done to help you guys do that. Again, as a technology firm, we use this constantly. Some of these things are second nature to us. So the whole purpose of this webinar is to kind of, make it a little bit easier, make it so that everybody out there in the world, everybody here on the webinar can learn from this and leverage it and utilize Teams to its fullest and do things a lot easier. And so that's where some basic Teams tips and tricks comes in. So again, this is really a hands-on experience. Bob is going to be walking us through how to do this, how to do that, and really help us get over that hurdle, maybe a little bit of fear, get past some of that fear, and help us use Teams in a way that, again, improves your productivity and ultimately helps your business become more profitable. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Bob now and let the training begin. Bob, you with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks very much, Craig, for that introduction.
Great. So at this point, I will turn this over to you. I'm going to change the presenter, and we'll be looking at your screen now. And here we go.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our second Teams training. Hopefully everybody can see the Teams app up on my desktop. I'd like to welcome all of you that were part of our first webinar. Really glad that you made it back to the second one, or what I like to call the sequel. So we're going to dive right in. As opposed to the last one, we did a lot of high-level stuff. We did a lot of slides. We sold you really on why Teams is great, but you know what we're going to do this time? We're just going to dive right in, and we're going to get into the Teams application. We're going to use it, and we're going to see how we can get around it. So what I'm going to do here is just a brief overview of what the Teams application looks like. As you can see on the screen, this is the main pane of glass that Teams is. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to start right up on the top right corner here at the profile settings. I'm going to go ahead and click on my name here, and it's going to give us a drop down. And this is some really important stuff that we can do really to set us off on the right foot. So number one thing that we can do that everybody likes to do is we can add a picture if we'd like to, real simply right here. Moving on down the line, I'm going to get to statuses. And statuses are really important, guys, because in this new world, where everyone isn't in the same room together, it's important to know where people are. Are they available? Are they busy? Are they at their desk? So Teams does a great job of letting us know where people stand. So obviously, when you get in the morning and you open up Teams, you're going to show on that green available. You're available to chat. You're available to talk. Very easily understood there. Then we can go down here to the busy and the do not disturb. And what's great about the busy is, as we said in the last webinar, Teams integrates with Outlook and it syncs with Outlook. So everything you do in Outlook is going to show up in your Teams calendar. I'll show you that a little bit later. But just know that whenever you're in a meeting, Teams is going to show you that you're busy. So, and maybe even do not disturb. So you can set things up so that while you're in a meeting and you're discussing, you don't want to be interrupted by anyone. And so Teams is going to show your status as busy. Then, of course, here at the bottom, we have the yellow status, which would be away. So let's say you step away from your desk for 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe you're going to take your lunch for the afternoon. You can just go in here and click your status that you're away, and then your teammates will know that at that time, you're not available to discuss work. So statuses are really helpful in this remote world. If we were all in the same room together and I could just look over and see if you were available. But in this world, when we now have 25 separate offices, we don't have that interaction, and so it's really nice to be able to tell people where you stand. So
And Bob, if I could jump in there really quick, if you could pull that little pop out up again for a second. One of the beauties of Teams is its integration, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the integration here that we're talking about this is integrated in with your Outlook calendar. So these statuses will be updated automatically from your Outlook calendar. So for instance, if you have a meeting at this time, it'll automatically show up as busy. So really cool feature. Again, very subtle things that are integrated, but they make your life easier. So you don't have to manually do this across all different applications.
sure, definitely. Thanks, Craig. So moving on down the list here, you can see I have a set status message. So let's say maybe you're away for the day or you have some important meetings. What we can do is type a message here. So I can say here, I'm watching Netflix, will call after season 1 is done. Something like that, and I can say done. And of course, that's going to show up here on my notifications. When anyone looks here, they'll be able to know where I stand by that status message. So when I go down to the settings here and I click on settings, it's going to open up this new pane. And this is some of the settings that are really the down and dirty settings of Teams. And it starts with the theme. There's a lot of people out there that like that dark, background. They like the high contrast. It's very easy for me to change that. I personally prefer this one, so we'll keep it as that one. But if you like to go dark or high contrast, it's very easy to do right here. There's some simple tabs you can press here, auto start the application when you turn on your computer, things of that nature. And then down here, what language that's where you would set your primary language and your keyboard language. So moving on to privacy from that left tab here. Privacy is really great in the sense that we can kind of determine who talks to us when and where. So let's say we have a situation at our company where the CEOs, they don't necessarily want to get instant messages from some of the team, that isn't part of their discussion. They're very focused. So what we can do is go in here and really personalize, who gets messages, especially when you're in a meeting. So for example, if Craig set this up and he said, you know what, I'm in this very important call, I'm going to block access to everyone. But what I can do is go in there and manage access. So let's say, well, I will let Bob in, because Bob, of course, if he wants to talk, he has something very important to say. So Craig could go in there and kind of block everyone, but in case there was some emergency or something I need to say, my communications would get through. And that's where we'd set all this stuff up. Same as blocked contacts and read receipts and some of that stuff. That's where we'd set the privacy settings. So if I go down here to notifications, Teams uses a lot of the same things that Outlook uses. So I'm sure you guys out there who use Outlook are used to the banners. So when you get a new email, it shoots down on the right side and kind of shows you that you've gotten a new email. Well, Teams works a lot of the same way. When you get a new message or a new, something to have to do with some team or channel you're on, you're going to get that banner notification. In some cases, you're going to get an email notification. So I can go in here and I can really customize, do I want to be notified? There's so many different personalities out there. Today, a lot of people like the notifications, but some people still don't. So I think this is a great area where you can kind of really personalize when you want to be notified about things that are going on in Teams and when you just really would kind of rather wait to see that information. So moving on, I'm going to go down here to devices. And this devices is very important. As Craig kind of mentioned, the background in this webcam world that we live in is important, whether we like it or not, things such as lighting and, the backgrounds and all this good stuff has become important in these situations because we've all been on a call who, the person kind of looks like that blurred out person who can't reveal his name or his face, and it just doesn't give the right impression. So what we can do here in this devices is we can take a look at how the computer is interacting with Teams. And I can see here the speakers that I'm using or the headset that I'm wearing right now, but I can go in here and change it if I like to different options. So I'm sure that we've all run into that instance where one person is on the meeting, but you can't hear them. They can hear you, but for some reason we can't hear them. Well, where we could go is right in here, and we could make sure, does the speaker, is the correct speaker lined up? Are the microphone, is that lined up so we can hear them correctly? That's where we'd find this stuff and how Teams is going to interact with the equipment that we have with our computer. Down here is, it doesn't show now because of course we're already in another meeting and we can't cross the streams in a sense between having two meetings. So my webcam is focused on this webinar. But if it wasn't, we would be able to see a preview of my camera, what it's showing. And so I like to do this a lot, maybe in the morning, make sure the lights are on and just take a quick look here and make sure that everything in my background looks good. Hopefully my daughter didn't leave too many of her toys in the background. So I like to take a quick look here and really make sure that everything is on the up and up before I kind of start my day, and just make sure everything looks good there. Okay, real quick here, we can go in for permission. So some people out there, they don't want the Teams to know your location. That's perfectly fine. If you wanted to change that, go ahead and change it in here. And then calls, one great thing about Teams, and we're really not going to get into it too much here, but Teams can actually act as your phone. In the sense that you can use it to dial phone numbers and to receive numbers. Now, it does include, you have to pay for some additional licensing, and there's a little more to it, but at the same time, I want everyone out there to know that it is a possibility. Let's say you guys get into Teams in a couple months from now and you're like, wow, this really is the greatest app. I want to go the next step and kind of get my phone system through Teams. Well, just so you guys know, that is a possibility out there. So.
And sorry, Bob, going to jump in here again for a second.
Sure.
While Microsoft has the ability to make phone calls and integrate Teams into a phone system, which is what Bob's talking about, and does require an additional license to do that, out of the box, you can make calls to anybody in your organization at any time. So that is one of the nice benefits. So in addition to doing video calls or just voice calls from computer to computer, if you have Teams set up on your phone, you now have instant access where you're making phone calls over the internet as opposed to over phone lines to anybody in your organization. So from a business continuity standpoint, it's a great interim tool, because if the phone lines go down, as long as the internet's still working wherever you're at, you can talk to anybody in your organization through the Teams app. So I just wanted to sort of clarify what the calling capability is. It's twofold. One is 100% out of the chute, free with Teams. You can call anybody in your organization. If you want to talk to people outside your organization as though it's a phone call, that's a separate license.
Yes, great. Thanks for that clarification, Craig. Appreciate it. Okay, so guys, let's go ahead and move on here and get back to the main application and really start getting into it. I'm going to start here right at the top, and you see the search bar here. And we're going to think of that search bar almost as if the Google search. This is kind of the global search that we really can search for anything inside the Teams application. For instance, let's say I wanted to search for one of my coworkers. I wanted to speak to my friend Brian. I could very easily click on his name and a new conversation could begin at that time. I could also do a search for maybe some teams and channels that I'm involved in. For instance, for this application, Craig and I created a Teams demo version. This isn't actually my personal Teams. This is a demo version. So we created a demo team, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I can access that team right here. And thirdly, what I can also do is access applications here. Let's say I wanted to search, does Teams have an application that I might need or want to use? And right now, Teams has over 250 apps. Let's say a lot of people use ADP for their payments, and here we have the ADP virtual assistants that I could just go ahead and click on, and that would install that application into my team. So this top search bar is really it's a global search that we can really search for anything that we may need. Okay, now I'm going to take us to this left rail menu here. I'm going to call it here this dark bar here on the left. I'm sliding my cursor over, and this is really the high level Teams where I can get to the sections that I need to get at a very high level. And I'll go through it. And first is activity is exactly what you would think. So I'm going to click on that. And as I said before, this isn't the Teams instance that I personally use. So there's not a ton of stuff in here, but you can see some activities. Craig added me over here. If we were to make any phone calls or have any meetings, that would show up here on the left as an activity. As you can see here, down here, I've added a PDF for the meeting agenda where he can see that as an activity as well. So basically anything that kind of goes on throughout the day, you're in a video call, you're on a chat, you add a document, that's going to go ahead and show up here on your activity feed. Moving down the line, I'm going to hit that chat function, which really is the #1 way that FPA uses Teams, guys. We use it for the chat function. It's wonderful. It's easy. Clicking on here is going to show us all our chat conversations. As you can see right now, I only have one conversation with Craig. We'll see if I can work on that in a little bit. But, oh, here we go, Craig, I've reeved. So let me respond. As you can see, you know, we can very easily talk with each other through IM and speak and see what's going on throughout the day. Here, you know, that's where we're going to see all the chats we're having. And if I go ahead and click on that chat button over here on the left. Oh, so he's asking what I'm doing for lunch. And so I might respond by saying, you know, something to that effect. So moving on here, I'm going to click on the Teams. Oh, Craig, of course, has something to respond for that. So I'm going to still go on here and you can see how it will notify him a little bit. And I'm going to click on the Teams here. As you can see here, just like I said, that little banner here pops up. I can go ahead and reply, or I can X that out real quick just to get that off my screen if I wanted to. So here, guys, I've clicked on the Teams button here, and we're not going to talk too much about Teams today. So Teams and apps, those are really saved for our third webinar that we're going to do in a couple weeks to kind of complete the trilogy, if you will, about Teams. So I will touch on it just a little bit, just so you have a rough idea. If Teams and channels are really that second level of Teams, and don't ask me why they named two things Teams. It doesn't make any sense. It's confusing, but for this purpose, Teams can mean two different things. Teams is the name of the app, and Teams is also ways that you organize yourself through channels And you can really get down. And what I mean by that is we can create specific teams, an accounting team, a finance team, a building code team. I created a real quick marketing team here. And as you can see, I added a couple channels, that where all the marketing team could kind of communicate with each other, do some event planning, forecasting, things of this nature. And what's really great about the channels is that everything you do together will show up in this feed. So for example, I put a meeting agenda on here for everyone in the meeting. And if I click on it, you can kind of take a quick peek here. And I created a little meeting agenda here. And everyone in the meeting and tied to that channel, they can go ahead and view that meeting agenda at any time. That agenda is never going to go away. It's always going to be there so we can review it at a later time. So this is really helpful. But again, we're not going to dive too much into the teams and channels. What we are going to dive into a lot of is the calendar. That's the next step here. I click on the calendar icon and you can see this is actually the Bob demo calendar that I created. You can see here on Tuesday I had my Peloton workout, which is definitely not the real Bob because I'm not doing workouts like that. But at any rate, this syncs with my Outlook calendar, and that's really an amazing feature, guys. So everything that you do in the Teams, if you create a meeting, it's going to sync with your Outlook calendar, and as well, if you make something in your Outlook calendar, it's going to sync with your Teams calendar as well. So this is a tremendous feature within Teams. I can click in here. For instance, we're in the webinar. I can click in to review the proposal, any of the information surrounding the event, all that good stuff over here. If I had invited anyone to my party, that they would show here. But this is a really quick way for me to look at my calendar as opposed to having to look up Outlook. It's just another advantage for me to view my calendar. If you guys use Outlook like I do, it's really invaluable, and Teams allows us to view the Outlook calendar and to sync with your regular Outlook application pretty seamlessly. So that's really great. So I'm going to go on here to calls, guys, the next button down the list. And as you can see here, we've got a bunch of the FPA employees here showing up as people that we could potentially call. Here we have them on speed dial, and also I can go to my contacts here. So we have a lot of questions about contacts. So this is the one way that Teams does have to improve. So right now, Teams does not have a way, Microsoft does not have a way to sync your Outlook contacts with your team contacts. So that is an inefficiency right now, but I can promise you that Microsoft very much cares about the success of Teams, and they realize this is very important. So they will get it fixed. Now, that being said, in a little bit, I'm going to show you a workaround so that you don't really necessarily need all your contacts in Teams per se. I have a way around that can really make this work. But for instance, here are basically the contacts from my from FPA. If I wanted to add an additional contact, it's very simple here. All I'm going to do is go ahead and click Add Contact, and let's say I want to add my friend Michael Jordan. He just had a wonderful documentary. So I want to add him as a contact, and then it's just some very simple stuff, company Nike, title, CEO, and of course I'm not going to put the phone number because I wouldn't want you guys to be calling him on my behalf, so that would embarrass me. So I'm just going to cancel out of this. But again, just know that adding contacts into Teams is really easy, and if you want to see your contact list, this is where I would find it, as well as any history of calls that I made or any voicemails that I have. This is where I'm going to find it in that calls tab. So lastly is the files tab here, guys, and this is going to show any files that I've used within Teams, via OneNote or SharePoint. So I haven't added too much here. I do have that meeting agenda document that I showed you guys earlier, and that's going to show up here too. So when you start adding a lot of files into Teams, it's going to get a little bit, you're going to need a way to kind of organize your thoughts per se, and this is a way one of the ways we can view all of our files that we've added to Microsoft Teams. So that's really great. Okay, now I'm going to jump back here to this chat menu, guys, because that's a really important place where you're going to spend a lot of time And I'm going to go here to this white bar here. And this is where all your conversations are going to show up. And as you can see right now, I only have this one conversation chat. But if I go up here to my contacts, I can very easily see a bunch of my teammates here. And let me see if I can find someone here real quick. Maybe I'll touch base with Julie. And I'll say, hey, Julie, how's it going? So we'll see if she's doing anything, and she can perhaps reply. And we'll see how she's doing. But if I go now back to, oops, here it is. Great. It seems that she is at her desk. So you can see right down here that she is replying to me. So let's see what she has to say. Obviously, it's something very important. So here we go. Hey, Bob, how's it going? The webinar is amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much, Julie. I very much appreciate that. That's great. Truth be told, she's not on the webinar. I paid her to say that. So if I go back to the recents, guys, you can see now Julie's messaging has shown up there as well. So we have Craig and Julie as well. And the more conversations that we have, the more this is going to populate. And so we'll be able to look at all the messages that we've had and the communications we had with everyone at all times. And that's really great. And what I mean by that is it's perpetual. That's a word we use a lot. And what they mean is that it never really goes away. So from the moment you text, the first day you guys have Teams, that's going to be there for forever. And you're always going to be able to look back at any files or anything that occurred within that chat. It's never going to go away. So that's really cool. Oops, here we go. As a sample, here's a chat. Let me go ahead and click on this. This is actually Craig's real account. If you can see kind of down here, he created that demo account, and this is Craig's actual account. And I'll say, hey, really, really appreciate that, Craig. Thank you. Okay, right here, guys, I'm going to show you some quick tips here when it comes to the the chats over here. And I'm going to click on this ellipsis, guys. And whenever you see those 3 periods, what they mean is ellipsis. I'm not sure why, but that's what it is. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I can do some really cool stuff here. What I can do is I can pop out this chat if I wanted to. I can mark it as unread. Let's say somebody said unimportant, but I clicked on it and I said, you know, I want to look at that later. Let me go ahead and mark that as unread. Okay. Or let's say I wanted to take Julie's here. And I said, well, geez, that's really important conversation. I want to go ahead and pin that. And you can see now Microsoft has kind of changed those so that that conversation with Julie has been pinned up here to the top. So it's really nice to kind of separate things that maybe you find more important than other conversations. It's really simple to separate that stuff out. So I can go ahead and unpin that and we'll just go back. I can also go in here and I can mute the conversation. I could hide the conversation. Now, again, it doesn't erase, it doesn't go away, but I could hide it. Let's say I didn't want to see it anymore. So that covers really the chat functions on a high level over here from the different ones. But now I'm going to go here on this top rail here, guys. Follow me along here. And that shows information specifically about the chat that you're having at that time. So if you see here, Craig's name is here because he's the only person that's involved in this chat. If I were to add some extra people to this chat, we would go ahead and they would show their names as well. So on this chat function, it's going to show all of our chats. Like I said, it's perpetual. It's never going away. I can also click here on files. So let's say Craig and I had shared a bunch of files with each other. They would all show up here and we'd be able to easily access them. For organization, currently Bob Demo account hasn't been given an official title yet at FPA, but if he had been, you could clearly see, you know, the organizational setup would show here. Activity is, so going back to teams, you know, we touch base real quickly on teams and channels. And this is where if we had been some active teams and some information, I could just go here real quick and maybe Craig said, hey, this team, can you look at it here? This is just another way that I could go ahead and check out that activity. It'd be really easy. This addition button here, I can add an application. And again, guys, sorry, but I'm not going to get too much into the applications, but you can see here how quickly it would be for me to just add Excel or OneNote or any of the 250 third-party applications down here, we can very seamlessly add. I could just very quickly click on OneNote. Now, because I'm not technically assigned in my personal account, it doesn't think that I have any OneNote, but I could just go ahead and create, Bob's OneNote. We'll say Bob's one. How's that? Save that. And then it's going to create a tab here, guys, of OneNote. That's how easy it is to do. It may take a minute here to get it going, but then you can see here, here's Bob's OneNote right here. And let's say, as Craig showed you on our last webinar, this is how FPA uses Teams a lot, very much in our meetings. We have our OneNote up here, and you can see I just simply added OneNote application here, and I can add any meeting notes or anything, and that's going to be tied to this chat for as long as Craig and I are having that chat. So that's really a big advantage, how to add applications into a chat or into a Teams or a channel. It's really that simple, guys. Okay, great. And as Craig says here, he got the notification that I added that to the team. So I'm going to make my way here to the right, and this is a very important part, guys. This is how we make those video calls and those phone calls that Craig and I have been talking about. And it's real simple. I'm in the Craig chat here. If I were to press this video call button, it would initiate immediately a video call with Craig. Now, again, because we're kind of having two meetings at once, what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to press this button like I'm going to call Craig, but he's not going to pick up, and we're just going to kind of show you what it would look like if you were to make a call on Teams. So I'm going to go and press that button. You can see it's kind of making the call. I'm going to go ahead and hang up because he's not going to pick up, but that's how a phone call interaction would work within the Teams function, within people within your team and your company. So that's really easy. All I need to do, there's plenty of ways to make a phone call or a video call, and I can do that right here. I can also share my screen right now if I wish. If we were having a chat and I said, hey, Craig, let's take a look at this. FPA uses the screen share quite a bit. It's just incredibly handy, and we use it to kind of show what it is that we're working on and to be able to really get our point across as opposed to trying to interpret what it is that we're seeing. We can just go ahead and share our screen and share the information. We can move so much faster through the discussion. So this next one over here is add people. So let's say Craig and I are having a conversation and we want to add someone. We have a question for Kyle. So very easily what I can do is type in Kyle's name. He shows up here. I'm going to go ahead and click on his name and click add. And as you can see, guys, over here, a new conversation has started. And why that is important, because a lot of people have this question, say, hey, Bob, when I add people to a chat, are they going to be able to see the previous chats that me and him had privately? And of course, the answer is no. That's going to be a separate chat we can see down here. So everything that Craig and I have done in this chat, once I added somebody, it's going to create an entirely new chat. So the person who gets added, he'll really only be able to see what it is that occurs in that specific chat. So we don't have to worry too much about that.
So Bob, if I could jump in here real quick for a second, we
Sure.
do have a question that's sort of related to this topic. So somebody's asking a question, is there a group chat? And I think it would be, worthwhile to talk about either adding multiple people or creating a group chat, and how sort of when you're in a team, you automatically have a group chat. So maybe you can touch on that for a second.
Sure. Well, like you said there, if we were to talk about the teams and channels, you actually add the people to the team that you would want. So let's say you wanted to have 5 people on that team. I would just go in here to that team and I click on this ellipsis here and it says add member, and I can very easily add any member of my team to this. For instance, Kyle, I can add very easily to the team. So whenever meetings are created through this team now, everyone will be invited to that message and be involved. Now, if you're just talking about low level and we just want to have a multiple chat, it's really simple to do, guys, here, just like I did with the Craig and Kyle here. So let's say Craig and Kyle and I are having the conversation and we want to add some more people. It's really easy for me to just continue to add whomever. Let's say we need Jerry's input on something. We can add him. Let's say we need Americo's input on something. And I can add him very easily to this chat. And again, what it's going to do, guys, it's going to create the new chat. And you can see up here now we've had this group chat with Americo, Craig, Jerry, as well as 2 additional people. So we've created essentially that group chat. Teams is very open to adding and subtracting people off of the chats. So it's actually really simple if you want to add or create that group. I could even do it from this top menu bar. Let's say I wanted to include Brian, and I also want to go in here. I'll just add that someone else to his. He's really buddies with Jason, so he wants to be on the call as well. So I very quickly just made a group chat between Brian, Jason, and myself. So hopefully that covers how you would add people to a chat. It's obviously very easy. It shouldn't cause any problems, and don't worry that you won't be including previous chats that you've had with someone else. It will create an entirely new chat. As you can kind of see here on the right, guys, I've really started building up my chat here just by talking to you guys and getting that stuff. Okay.
And sorry, jump in again. One of the things related to this in a concept, and I'd like to touch on just real quickly, is security. And as Bob mentioned, right, how when you add somebody or you create a new chat with somebody, they don't see the previous history. There are ways that you could add them into that thread so they could see all the previous stuff, or there's ways to add them not, just like Bob just did. But the big takeaway I'd like everybody to make sure that they get from all of this is all of the security around who can see what is all automatically built in. So for instance, if you have a team, if Bob, if you can go back to the team tab there for a second, anybody, so if there's a whole bunch of documents on the marketing team, the demo team can't see them, and vice versa. So every team that you create, every person that you add, all the documents that you integrate across all the different teams, the chats, all of that access and accessibility and security is automatically built into the system. So that's a really, really nice function, to be able to control that and not have to manually deal with who has access to what. If they're in this group, they're going to have access. If they're not in this group, they don't have access.
Yeah, definitely. That's an important point, Craig. Thanks. Okay, jumping back to the chat function, guys, I'm going to head down here to the message area here, and I'm going to run real quick on this ribbon that looks a lot like PowerPoint and Excel and Word, and it works exactly the same. So let's say I wanted to format any type of my message. For instance, I want to say hi to Craig, but it's a very important hello, so I want to bold it, maybe italicize it so he understands the importance. There's plenty of buttons here that I can mess with: the paragraphs, indentation, quotations. I can add links, the whole 9, guys. Anything I want to do in regards to writing it, I can go ahead and send that to Craig right away. Also, what I can do is I can set delivery options. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have something to say that is a little bit more important than the average chat. So what we can do is go in here and make the message important, or what we can do is actually make it urgent. And in that case, the recipient will be notified every 2 minutes for 20 minutes, just so that they're aware that you have this very urgent matter that would like to speak to them as soon as possible. So we talk about how amazing Teams is with integration with documents. And let me show you real quick what I mean by that. I'm going to press on this paperclip here, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to upload a document from your OneDrive, which of course everybody knows is kind of the Dropbox of Microsoft. Everyone who has a license has access to OneDrive. We can use that, or I can actually upload a file from my computer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and click on this Excel spreadsheet here, and it's going to load up into the chat box here. Okay, it's loaded, and then I go ahead and send it. So it was really that simple for me to send an Excel document to Craig. So if I go here and I click on open up my Excel document here. Okay, so here we have my Excel document. And as you can see, very easily, Craig can see it, I can see it. And this is the greatest thing about Teams and the shared documents, guys, because remember we talked about all those versionings. Watch this, I'm gonna say 5, maybe awesomeness. I'm not sure, but I can add that in. And the great thing is, guys, I don't have to press save. I can go ahead and close. And the reality is that's done. And if I go and open it up again, you're going to see that that number 5 that I put in there is there. It's automatically been saved. Craig and I know exactly which document that we're on. So I'm going to go ahead and close this before he has an opportunity to respond. But basically that gives you an idea of how quickly we can share Excel documents and Word documents and interact and not be worried about is he on document 4? Am I in document 7? Teams makes that really easy. One of the most fun parts about Teams, and again, this is for the right people at the right time, is we can do emojis. These are a lot of fun stuff. For example, my response to Craig there could be, "Hey, let's laugh there a little bit about it." It's a lot of fun. We can add emojis here, and we can also add GIFs. So keep in mind, Microsoft is very much cares about this. They don't want to put anything R-rated on here. It's a lot of fun stuff. For instance, here's Winnie the Pooh. I can very easily send this to Craig to kind of let him know that it's about lunchtime and I'm getting hungry. So now again, I'm not saying that you should have all your communications with these gifts and stuff. You should know the time and the place for when these things should go down. But if you do have a good relationship with that person, gifts and emoticons, they're just a lot of ways to fun up the day, and keep things light and really improve that communication. So going down here, I can actually schedule a meeting, which I'll touch on in just a minute to finish up with you guys. But I want to go here and show you how easy it is to add an application real quick to this chat. So I'm going to click here, and I've been even given some suggestions here. So the other day, Craig and I were talking about music, and he made the comment to me. He said, "Bob, the 70s disco was the greatest time in musical history." And I said, "Well, Craig, have you ever heard of Led Zeppelin?" And so he said he had not. So I can go in here and I can click on the Wikipedia search. And as simple as this, I just clicked add. Wikipedia is now included. You can see the little button down here, and I can go ahead and I can type in Led Zeppelin, of course. Let's see if it comes up here. Yep, English rock band. I can go ahead and send this to Craig, the link right there, and he can read about Led Zeppelin and their time in the 70s because he doesn't know anything about that band. So that really shows the apps and how we get around everything in Teams. What I want to touch on now, guys, is how we would schedule a meeting. And what's a meeting going to look like, guys? Let's finish this up with the big encore. How do we schedule a meeting? Well, there's quite a few ways to schedule a meeting, and I'm going to show you them right now. The first way we're going to do is schedule a meeting right through this bottom bar. So because I'm in this Craig Pollock demo, it's going to think that I want to create a meeting with Craig. So I went ahead and clicked on that button. And I'm going to title the meeting. As you can see, they've already made Craig a participant. I can also add someone if I want. I can either add someone who's already in my contact list, but I can also add someone who's not. So for instance, Michael Jordan earlier, I can add him to this. It'll say, well, we're not sure we know him, but here we are. And Michael Jordan at Nike.com will also receive this invitation. It's just that simple to get your potential clients into Teams, the invitation. So I can set the time here, all that good stuff, any details, just like in Outlook. This is how I would create a invitation. So the other way I can do it is directly through the calendar in Teams. And the really easy way, besides this big button over here that says new meeting, I can click on the time that I want to have the meeting. So let's say I want to have the meeting right here. I want to have lunch maybe, and I'll invite Craig. And it's just that easy to create the invitation. I'm going to go ahead and send this to Craig. And as you can see, guys, my Outlook updated immediately. With that invitation, I can click on it. I can see here on the right, Craig, he has yet to respond. So all that information is just how Outlook works. And the great thing is here, guys, is you can see this link. Do you see the link here? That's how you're going to get into that Teams meeting. You just click on that link. It's really that simple. So those are the two ways that I'm going to start a meeting or request a meeting through the Teams application. There's a third way that I'm going to show you, and that's through Outlook. So I'm going to pull this up real quick, guys. And what I have here is a Microsoft Outlook meeting invitation. It looks just very normal, and this will allow us to utilize our contact base in Outlook. And what you can see right here is this Teams button here. And if I go ahead and press this button, it's going to put that link for the meeting into the body of the email. And then I would just go ahead and send it to whomever I wished, and that person would receive the email and get the invitation. Now, we've talked a lot about how easy it is for people who are on 365 to utilize these meetings, but what about people who don't have 365? That's the big question. What about the people who aren't on 365? What's their experience like? So if we go ahead and send them that invitation, they're going to get an email just like everyone else, and it's going to have a link in it. And when they press on the link, they're going to get to this screen. And they're going to have two choices. They're going to be able to download the Windows app, which not everyone wants to do, so we don't have to do that. But they can also join by the web instead. So if they click on that button for join the web instead, they're going to be launched into a web browser, and that's where the meeting is going to go. So you can have people who don't have Teams, who don't have 365, they can be on a Teams meeting with you, and they don't need to have a 365 license at all. So that's really great. They do have some diminished functionality, but at the same time, they can meet and talk and add really benefits to the conversation. That's really great. So lastly, I'm going to show you guys a couple quick slides here about what it's like when you're in a meeting and what we're going to see here. And the main thing that we need to talk about is this main bar that shows up on the bottom. And what that can do is really be helpful during the meeting about things you need. For instance, we can go here and turn off our camera with this button if we'd like. We can mute or unmute ourselves. This is very important with a lot of big meetings and you think you're making some noise. You can always just mute and unmute yourself. We can share our screen here. And with this ellipsis, what we can do is add different things. We can record the call. We can go in there and change some of the backgrounds. Microsoft has some pre-made backgrounds if you don't like your background. I would say in the right condition, it does work. But at the same time, if your background is a little skewed, it's not going to show very well and can be kind of a little bit distracting. So be very careful when you're using those backgrounds. What we can also do here is enter the chat function, and we can also add participants right in the meeting at that time. That's really helpful. Craig and I could be meeting, and we could literally add someone into that meeting just by pressing that button. And then, of course, with the red button here, we would hang up and leave the meeting. So what does it look like, guys, when we're in a meeting? And I found this wonderful picture from Microsoft. And as you can see, everyone is very happy that you're on this Teams webinar. Of course, except this girl over here, she did not get the memo to smile. That's unfortunate. We'll move on. But basically what it is that Microsoft can give you a 3x3 grid of video. That's what they can do. And I would imagine in a couple months, they'll be able to even do 4x4 and more and more. But we're going to be able to see 9. That doesn't mean we can only have 9 people in the meeting. That just means we can only see 9 videos. So then when someone speaks up, the videos will change to whomever has been speaking. So you can only see 9 concurrent videos, but you can have many more than just 9 in the actual meeting itself. So that kind of gives you an idea of what a webinar meeting is going to be. One last thing here, guys, before I hand it over to Craig, is what would it look like if I was going to make a call on my phone? And this is real simple. Again, this guy's lovely face, he's very happy. This is what it would look like. We can do calendar stuff. We can still share the screen. We can still have meetings through our phones. Of course, Teams is available on iPad, iPhone, and Android, all the good stuff. We can make the phone calls and the meetings work through Teams. So that really kind of ends my side of this. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Craig. I very much appreciate everyone's time. I'm very happy that you made it and you stuck around, and hopefully we were able to add a little bit to your team's knowledge.
Yeah, that was phenomenal, Bob. Really, really, really good job. I can, here we go. Where are we at? Show my screen. All right. Okay, and we're back. So, like I said, I'm going to back up for 1 second. When we started out, we wanted to come in as close to noon as possible, and that's about right where we're at. Like I said, phenomenal job, Bob. I think by the number and quality of questions, where there was some really good questions, but not too many. I think that means that you answered a lot of questions by the presentation. So good job there. There were a couple questions that I thought might be worthwhile, just to let everybody know and get on the same page about. So one of them was, is there a limit to the number of participants in the meetings? Technically, the answer is yes. I believe it's 10,000. So I would say, again, technically there's a limit. Are we going to have meetings with more than 10,000 people? If we do, I think that's a phenomenal thing, but I don't think we need to worry about running up onto that limit too much just yet. What was one of the other ones? Is there a group chat? I think we addressed that with the teams and how that all works. So like Bob showed, there's lots of integration and lots of different ways to do this. You can manage your calendar through Outlook, and all your teams links get put in there automatically. Literally when we first went to remote, number of our meetings were through Zoom. And then as we became more and more fluent, and it became obvious how easy it is and how less time intensive it is to just schedule meetings within Teams and within Outlook, and the fact that it's all integrated together was just a beautiful thing. So yeah, I think that one of the other questions that we have now is, can you have a virtual background so that others can't see documents on your desk, wall calendars, etc.? Yeah, so the background is when you have the video turned on. So you can have a different background, or you can even just leave your background as is, but there's a built-in blur function that will automatically blur everything around you. So you'll still come through clearly, but your background is blurred, so nobody can see what's going on behind you. So that's a pretty cool function. Again, one of the other questions, and I think we'll get into this in as Bob said, in completing the trilogy in our next webinar. How do I add or import contact names into the contact list? Do I need to manually enter each contact? No, I don't believe that you have to manually enter them into each contact, but that's probably next level up, and where we'll talk about it in the intermediate training, and again, want to be sensitive to the time that everybody has right now. So wrapping things up, just wanted to reiterate, as I did in the last webinar, that we have a number of resources. If you go to our work from home section, which is this link off to the right on the top menu bar up here, the work from home resources section has a blog post, the recommended resources for Microsoft Teams, and there's a boatload of information, a boatload of links to Microsoft, to other companies supporting Teams. So lots of information here. This webinar will be recorded, so we'll have this available on our website as well if you want to go back and watch some things again. That being said, if there are any other questions at the moment, I don't see any other questions that have come in since we answered the last one about the virtual background. Again, trying to be sensitive to everybody's time. It's 12:03 right now. No other questions. So I think we can, wrap things up. As we said, last webinar was the overview, the power of Microsoft Teams. It's a high level overview. Hopefully today's was a lot more detailed and really gave you a sense of the ease of use and at the same time the power of it. And we'll really be diving into that. So that was today's meeting, today's webinar. The next one is going to be intermediate for admins, how to set up different teams and channels, how to add people outside the organization, how to integrate apps into Teams, and how to use Teams on your phone. So lots of cool stuff to the next level, you know, once you get comfortable, and the things that we did right now. Really cool stuff. So we'll be having that in another 2 weeks, and we should really peel that back at that time. Other than that, I believe for more information, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help answer any questions, talk about how we can help you guys integrate Teams, implement Teams, help train you and your staff on Teams. We can do all of those sorts of things. But if we have no other questions at the moment, I want to thank everybody for your time. We really appreciate it. And thank you for sticking with us during the whole of this webinar. Had a lot of great attendance, and excuse me, lastly, huge thank you to Bob for such a wonderful job that he did. Bob, that was outstanding. Thank you so much. And any last words of wisdom you'd like to add before we disconnect?
Yeah, I'm really appreciative for everyone's time. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about Teams, and as always, you can be in touch with Craig or myself. We're here to answer questions and to help in any way that we can. And we really hope you enjoyed the webinar and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And my big takeaway is there's a band out there called Led Zeppelin that I had never heard
See,
of.
they didn't know that Led Zeppelin was your favorite band, Craig. So,
Yeah, I didn't know.
anyways, thanks
Anyway,
again for your time, everyone.
thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everybody. And have a great day and have a great 4th. And please, please, please stay safe out there. Mask up, and let's be healthy and get through this thing together. So thank you all. Take care and have a great day and a great 4th.
Adios, guys.